3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick. I also forgot to say the date. It's April 5th, Nick. Welcome.
Still feels like March 2020, though, doesn't it?
It does a little bit. Yeah. I'm going to use the excuse, I had a nap this afternoon. I'm going to use that as my reasoning.
Wow. Lucky guy.
Flustered. You know what? It's the last day of some time off. Figured do some housework and have a nap.
You also, I guess you're sticking with my current nickname. I guess I could have changed it in the Zoom chat too.
Yeah. I mean, I saw how you interacted with that nickname on Twitter this week and made a choice based off of that.
Okay, but listen, I watched the show. I watched the first 2 episodes this weekend.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. I loved it.
It's good, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think it is good. It's better than it has any right to be.
Yes. They definitely what I like about it is it's the right amount of nostalgia and new. Like they just weave it in without trying to just recreate the original.
Yeah, right. I like that the Mighty Ducks are the bad guys. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I like that Bombay's back, although I'm very curious to know about how he got from being a great lawyer in D3 to where he is now eating leftover birthday cake, managing the arena.
I think that's another spin-off episode.
I hope so. It would be great. I love the scene where he was skating around the ice and they very, very obviously kept switching him out with the body double.
You'd think by now, after 3 movies and now a series, Emilio Estevez would be able to skate, but we're not there yet.
No, not yet. The only scene I legit cringed at was the cafeteria scene when the kid stood up on the table and addressed the entire school about the hockey team.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's just because I'm an adult.
Right, you're an adult. That kids do cringeworthy things.
Yes. But other than that, I thought it was great. I can't wait for the next episode.
So which one, I mean, is that your appointment viewing on Friday now?
Probably. I'll probably wait till Saturday.
Yeah. Glad you're enjoying it. Do you resonate with the character, Nick the Stick, at all?
I resonated with his line about having more of a podcast type of body. I thought that was really funny. You know, he's so obviously meant to be the comedic relief, and he does it really well. Yeah. I think it works.
It's true. And let's be honest, Nick, out of the 2 of us, you're the least podcast body. So the listeners can't see that, but there's no way
you wouldn't know. You know what, Carl? I was thinking about that this week, and I was actually thinking how grateful I am that we don't do a video podcast, because then I'd have to not wear my pajamas every Monday night.
Yeah. I mean, what I appreciate is that every single Monday, something in your background changes. And there's either something leaned up against the wall behind you or a piece of artwork. Sometimes it doesn't even seem like you're in the same room. I really like it.
It's true. I'm really working on setting up my office for a more kind of permanent stay. I put up these shelves this weekend so that I can put up some pictures, and I don't know what else. I guess fake plants. My wife's all shopping for fake plants now.
I just imagine it we see on Hockey Night in Canada, Kevin Bieksa every week has a different set of pictures and different. I feel like this is our version of that, where every Monday something's different. I'm not even sure that's the same guitar that's hanging behind you that it was before.
Should I do next week Elliot Friedman Through the Years behind me?
That was good this week.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I like that. Well, we've got a lot to talk about this week. There's some big news happening in the NHL, especially focusing around the Vancouver Canucks. We've got some superstars maybe getting the superstar treatment. We've got a long-standing feud that we're going to talk about. We're going to dive into the Elimination Station and pick the next list and look back at the week that was for the Winnipeg Jets as well. We've got a great conversation that I had earlier today with the great folks at the store next door. You don't want to miss that. Stay tuned and check that out later in the show. But first, the Vancouver Canucks.
Oh, man. Over a year into this pandemic, and COVID is still dominating headlines everywhere, including in pro sports, right? Absolutely. This last week, the Canucks were shut down completely because of COVID protocols. And it felt like every day it got worse. First, it started with like 3 players and a couple coaches. And then it went up to 7 players. And then it was like 13 players. Now it's like over 20 players and staffers are all in COVID protocols. Nobody has any idea when this team is going to get back on the ice. It's a pretty serious situation for the NHL.
Absolutely. And I mean, luckily, it doesn't seem like there's any impact on other teams that are experiencing this, but the talk out of Vancouver is definitely very serious and very, honestly, some of the things that we are hearing, and there are conflicting reports, but like with the severity of some of the symptoms of some of the players on the team, not good.
Yeah. And I believe it has been confirmed that the variant of COVID that has spread through the locker room, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's the one that came from Brazil.
The P1.
The P1, which is apparently much harder. It's much more contagious, and it's much harder on younger people. Hence the symptoms that the Canucks are experiencing right now.
Yeah. And so we've got that. They're dealing with it. And really, right now, an unknown timeline of when they will be back. They have called up as many players from their AHL team as possible so that they can get across the border, so that they can be ready to play when they need to come back, if and when they're able to. But like you said, over 16 players right now on the COVID protocol list for the Canucks, and multiple staff members as well. And that doesn't mean that all those have tested positive for COVID, but certainly means that they're not able to play. So what do you think then? Because it seems weird because of how this season's gone on, but we are 5 weeks away from the end of this season. And with that being the case, right? Like the Canucks, they're not playing any games this week. Can we agree on that at the very least?
No way. Yeah, no way.
So that means the games from last week are going to have to be replayed. Maybe they could play some games next week. Best case scenario. So
yeah, maybe.
So what do you think would be the best approach for the NHL to have? Because I've seen a number of scenarios proposed or mentioned as possible options for the league. One being going off of or the points percentage. Another one being that they start the other 3 division playoffs first and then go to the Canucks, and then go to start the North when they're able to, or just skip, a number of those Canucks games and just go with what they have. What do you think is the best option for the league at this point?
I don't think that they should delay the start of the playoffs for the North Division. I think you lose a little bit of your punch at the start of the playoffs if you do that. I think they're going to try and get as many games in as they can. But honestly, have the team play as many games as they're comfortable with, and then go off points percentage. At this point, I really don't see how they're going to get what's the total number of games? 52, all 52 games in.
56, yeah.
56 games in for the Canucks.
Doesn't seem like that's possible at this point in time. I mean, they've already had 3 games canceled that that haven't been played for them. Tonight yesterday they were supposed to be playing the Jets, actually. They're supposed to be playing a few games against the Jets. The only team that they do not play left is the Canadiens. So they play the Jets these games right now that should have been played. So they've had 4 games officially postponed. Flames, Oilers, and 2 against the Jets. They play all the rest of the teams. They still have 4 games left against the Senators, which luckily, like that, those are not games that are going to be, the Senators will not be part of the playoff battle. But
yeah,
with the way that it is, playing against division rivals all the time, every game matters for the playoffs, the way that this is going.
Absolutely. And I just think that squeezing in, filling up their schedule to that extent, I don't think that's going to be as easy on them as it has been for some of the other teams who have been affected in this way. Like you look at the Sabres and you look at the Stars. COVID really did a number on both of those teams. I'm not familiar with the Sabres schedule, but I know the Stars have a lot of games coming up here. And, you know, both teams it's been reported pretty widely the long effects that COVID's had on some of the players as a possible explanation for their poor performance throughout the year.
Yes.
So now you have players coming off of COVID protocol, some of who have been affected pretty badly by the virus, and right away, right after they get over it, jumping into this intense schedule. I don't know how possible that's going to be for some of these guys.
So the Jets, the rest of the way, have 16 days off in their schedule. They already have to play 4 extra games in that stretch. Likely, I can't see them playing Thursday's game against the Flames. Saturday's maybe the first time that they're able to do this and get back playing. So that's 5 games that they'll have to make up. And at that point, with 15 days off. So that leaves them with only 10 off days the rest of the way.
Rough.
I can't see them. I mean, I can see them. They've already pushed out the end of the season, right? And they could maybe get a game in. The Jets last game or the Canucks last game is scheduled to be the 8th of May. So they do have like that extra day that they could get that in as well. But certainly going to be a difficult situation for the Canucks to get all those games in. And I just don't see it happening.
I do wonder if the league just kind of goes week to week and watches the playoff picture unfold. Because if by the last week of the season or the last 2 weeks of the season, it's pretty clear who's in and who's out. If the Canucks are mathematically eliminated for the playoffs or have cemented a spot in the playoffs, then maybe you cancel the rest of those games.
I mean, and you're talking on a points percentage basis or just like flat out?
I think they have to go points percentage.
I think so. And I think, right now, the Habs are significantly ahead of the Canucks on a points percentage basis. Even still, with the Canucks game, because the Habs missed some games earlier this season as well. The Habs have 3 games in hand and are 6 points up on the Canucks right now for that last playoff spot in the North. It doesn't seem to me like that's a situation where they're going to be able to get close enough that it becomes an issue. But I do think you do have to wait until they are mathematically eliminated, because it's not fair to just say, you probably weren't going to make it.
And the team wouldn't stand for that either.
No. And so at least I would like it if they could make it so that the Habs and Canucks could try to play the same number of games. Unfortunately, they don't play each other. So those aren't games that can do that, which also makes it much harder for the Canucks to catch the Habs without playing against them.
Yeah, that's true too. I don't know, man, this latest week in news, and we can talk about this later, come Elimination Station or Nick Lidstrom's, I think the picture in the North Division is becoming more and more clear.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one for sure. Well, let's stay in the North Division, because Connor McDavid, member of the Edmonton Oilers, as you know, I just saw the Oilers score. It wasn't him. That would have been quite the thing if I literally just say his name and he scores. But he was fined this week for an elbow during actually against these same Montreal Canadiens that they're playing right now, against Kotkaniemi. got a fine for that, $5,000. After last week, with us talking about officiating and the state of where it is in the NHL, Connor McDavid getting a $5,000 fine for his actions. Do you think that that was a fitting punishment?
If it was somebody else, if it wasn't Connor McDavid, if it was, I don't know, whoever, Milan Lucic,
Zach Kassian.
If it was Zach Kassian, do you think that's a suspension?
I mean, I tried to watch that as both slowed down and sped up as many times as possible. And they only were able to show one angle, which is very surprising. I only
from behind, right?
At it. Yeah.
And
so that's difficult to tell. But from what I saw, I mean, yes, there was contact with his head, but from what I saw, it looked like he first made contact with his chest and then rode up through his head. Certainly not a safe hit, but I think in the realm of what the NHL suspends for, to me, it wasn't a suspendable hit.
I thought it was pretty dirty. Like, to me, the head contact was pretty clear. You know, maybe he hit the shoulder or the chest first, but the head contact with his elbow was pretty clear to me. And I thought if it was anyone else, I don't think the fine could be heavier. I think that's the max that he got, right?
Yes, $5,000.
Can we talk about how ridiculous these fines are?
Yeah.
$5,000 for Connor McDavid, who makes what every year? What's his cap hit?
12.5.
$12.5 million. $5,000. That's nothing.
So let's say, and I'm just gonna pick a number. Let's say that you made $50,000 a year, Nick. If you were to get a equivalent fine, that would be $20. Would you elbow someone in the head if you were upset at them at work for $20, or just at any point in time? If they were like, Nick, like you can walk up, you can punch someone in the face, you can do whatever you want for $20, that will be your only punishment.
If $20 was the punishment, like, I'd do a lot of things if the punishment was just $20. Like, my speeding fines, not that I get a lot of them, but when I've been, not even speeding, parking tickets are more than $20.
Not even parking tickets. Parking is more than $20.
Parking is more than $20. If you and I were to go to an Edmonton Oilers game live and we bought 2 beverages,
it would cost us $20. Yeah, it would cost us at least $20.
These fines are ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's right? Like, it's optics. It's not meant to deter any behaviors.
It's a joke. It's not even like, if the optics is that they want to look foolish, they're accomplishing it greatly. But I mean, I don't know if we've said this on the show, but I would very much make it a percentage of salary. Make it a percentage of what your salary was that year, and that would be great.
And where does this fine go to again? It goes to like the Players Association Emergency Fund?
I thought it went to charity. Maybe it used to. Maybe the players are their own charity now.
Yeah, I feel like it goes to like an NHLPA alum fund or something like that.
Okay.
Still though, like, with the amount of these fines that are given out every year, what are they going to do with that little money?
Gonna have a nice little pizza party at the end of the year?
They're going to pay the guy's salary whose job it is to organize a pizza party.
Yeah. And
then they're going to buy a couple pies.
Yeah. I mean, probably about $20 worth of pizza. So you think he should have gotten at least a couple games for it then? Is that right?
I think if it was anyone else, we'd be talking about how many games they should have gotten. Yes.
Okay. And if I could have seen a different angle, I just think that with I guess the difference between what I think the NHL should do to be in line with like their precedent, I don't think it was suspendable, but I don't think it was a hit that should have happened.
It didn't look that bad because it wasn't at full speed, right? Like, they were kind of drifting back to the bench. They weren't skating too hard. it just looked targeted to me. It looked intentional.
Yeah. I mean, can we talk about another intentional moment that also got fined this week?
Yes.
Nathan MacKinnon, another superstar in the league, also was fined $5,000. And this felt more targeted than the McDavid hit. Can you agree? Does that sound right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, if you have not gone and seen this, look it up. It was Nathan MacKinnon and Connor Garland of the Arizona Coyotes. And they kind of are down in the corner. MacKinnon just like bulldogs him, rips his helmet off, rips Garland's helmet off, and then tosses it back at him and hits him in the face with his own helmet, which led to MacKinnon getting 14 minutes in penalties at the end of a game where that the Avalanche had destroyed the Coyotes. It was not a close game at all. But some of the penalties, I mean, I found a list of all the penalties and punishments that he could have broken. One of them, a player who intentionally removes an opponent's helmet during play shall be assessed a minor penalty for roughing. That seems like it should be more.
Yeah. Well, especially because you can't stay on the ice anymore if your helmet comes off.
Exactly. Like that seems like the easiest way, playoff game. Connor McDavid steps out for a shift and you just first thing you do is rip his helmet off. Problem solved.
Yeah, right?
I guess yeah, because then he couldn't stay out even on that like extended like pull the goalie time.
Yeah.
It's fine. Worth it. Okay. Other things that could have happened. There's a penalty. You can't throw equipment. I think most of the time we think of that as like throwing a stick to block a puck or a shot or something like that.
A glove,
You cannot throw any equipment, let alone someone's own helmet back at them.
These are both in the rule book?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
This is the first one is rule 9.6. The next one, rule 53. They go even further. So there's a whole section that's based on equipment. Rule 53, a minor penalty shall be imposed on any player on the ice who throws an object in the direction of the puck or an opponent in any zone. So you can't not even just equipment. You can't throw anything at them, which like, what else are you having on the ice other than equipment? That I want to know.
I don't know. Water bottle?
I guess a water bottle. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what it would be. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
A misconduct penalty shall be imposed on a player who intentionally or accidentally throws his stick or any part thereof or any other object or piece of equipment outside the playing area.
Okay, so you can't throw anything. Yeah.
A game misconduct penalty shall be imposed on a player who intentionally throws his stick or any part thereof outside. We just talked about that one. Apparently, they just double down. Oh, intentionally. That's it. So if you intentionally throw it out of the area, then you get that. And then if a player attempts to or deliberately injures an opponent by throwing a stick or any other object, he shall be assessed a match penalty. If injury results from the thrown object, a match penalty must be assessed for deliberate injury of an opponent. And luckily, Connor Garland, his ego was hurt in that moment, but I do not think he sustained any injuries from the helmet being thrown at him.
So MacKinnon broke a lot of these rules.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this GIF on repeat here. There's a lot to digest here. Like MacKinnon grabbed him and you could see him, like he was trying to remove the helmet.
Oh, it was
like his goal was to remove the helmet.
Yeah.
He's pulling at it, and then he falls. And when he gets up, he looks down and it's almost like he's surprised that he has the helmet. So he looks at it, looks back at Garland, and then it's calculated. He doesn't throw it with a lot of force. He just kind of lobs it at him.
Like it's an underhand.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not trying to hurt you with this, but I'm going to throw it at you anyways. Like, why? And then Garland like explodes backwards like he was hit by a grenade.
It was a magical moment. And again, if it was anyone other than Nathan MacKinnon, would he have deserved more than a $5,000 fine?
That one, I don't know if it's deserving of more than a $5,000 fine. It's kind of silly. Like he didn't throw it hard. He wasn't trying to hurt him in that moment. It's kind of just it's the kind of thing that no matter who it is, you get a slap on the wrist for that.
So Tom Wilson does that, and you're thinking Tom Wilson does that to Nathan MacKinnon, or does that to a star player, Tom Wilson versus Sidney Crosby. He bulldogs Crosby, takes off his helmet and throws it at him.
I mean, if you're taking the whole incident into consideration, the whole tackling of him and pulling him down and ripping the helmet off, yeah, maybe that's a game or two. Yeah. Oh man, he's really like grabbing his head when he's removing this helmet. I gotta take this off my screen.
Like, I would like you. Look, unfortunately, we're not in the same room right now, so we cannot test this. Otherwise, I would, you don't think it takes that much effort? Well, we could find out, right? But yeah. I think when we're done the show, maybe just go find your helmet, put that on, ask your wife to see how much effort it takes to rip that off of your head while you try to resist it.
She'd throw it at me too.
Maybe don't remind her of that gift, though. I just think I find it very interesting after what we saw last week of the NHL and their officials stating that the NHL didn't, but their officials did, of like makeup penalties. This is the kind of stuff that we get from the NHL. We should not be surprised at all that there's makeup penalties, because players do these things and get the minimal slap on the wrist.
Yeah, they allow a lot of things to happen on the ice that would be unheard of to just see happen on the street outside of your house.
They're like, checking someone is a legal part of the game that you cannot do on the street outside your house. But like, even things that are against the rules, right? I mean, none of these things that he did state that he needed to be suspended, but I think same thing, McDavid, there was the judgment call of whether that hit was or wasn't. But I think we see these things and we see, the fact that it goes from a $5,000 fine to a game suspension as the only options is ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. They got to fill in the gap there a little bit. This like maximum, it's funny how the league words it too, the maximum allowable under the CBA. Almost like they're deferring responsibility for what the punishment is. But they got to find some in between the maximum allowable and a 1-game suspension.
Yeah, they got to up that maximum. And stick tap to Scouting the Refs that scoured through the old rule book and found all those penalties that MacKinnon broke for me. So
there you go. It's a great account.
Yes, absolutely. I mentioned Sidney Crosby. He had not a helmet thrown at him, but some shade thrown at him by a longtime nemesis. Can we call him a nemesis?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. Brandon Dubinsky. And now, like, I'm not 100% clear the history between these two. Do you recall even like what got it started with these two?
It was playoff series between Columbus and Pittsburgh. Back when Columbus couldn't get out of the first round, before their Tampa days. Dubinsky, his job was to be all over Crosby. And it got pretty rough. And it then flowed into the regular season the following year too. Like, these guys have always been at each other's throats because of the way Dubinsky played him in the playoffs.
Yeah. And so what stemmed from actually a podcast this week, but Brandon Dubinsky took to Twitter to tell us his thoughts on. Sorry, I just found your fake Brandon Dubinsky and it made me laugh. But he took to Twitter and he said, "Listen, Crosby is better than me. I never said he wasn't. He's obviously the best ever. It's Ovi versus Sid. None of you have played in the NHL and know how hard it is to score goals. 724 is insane. Sid just whined too much and Ovi just shut up and played hard." And then he posted a screen grab of the comparisons of them from 2005 to now, and how many points and goals they have. I appreciate a lot of things about this. One is just how rent-free Sidney Crosby is living in Brandon Dubinsky's head.
Was there an incident that led to this though? Like, where does he come from? Listen, I never said Crosby wasn't better than me. I was like, were people all over him about something he said? I don't understand where this is coming from.
Yeah, I think maybe some were taken out of context, some of what he'd said. But okay. I mean, Brandon, listen, no one ever is stating that you are better than Sidney Crosby.
No.
In the slightest. So don't.
No.
You can pump the brakes on that one. No one thought that.
No.
But I like it. I like that I like how many tropes he goes into. You didn't play the game, so you don't know how hard it is to score goals. Look, I think we can understand that 724 goals is difficult to do.
It's just such a classic hockey player response.
Absolutely.
Like, can't you think there's a million other ways to go about that, but he had to go that you don't play the game, so you don't know.
No. I also appreciate, look, Sidney Crosby himself has acknowledged that he whined too much in the past.
Yes.
But what we also need to acknowledge is that we shouldn't sit here and say that Alex Ovechkin played hard all the time his entire career, and that's what led to his 724 goals.
No. Although I will say I think part of this is coming from the fact that Brandon Dubinsky was the victim of Sid's whining for a very long time.
That's fair.
So he probably saw a lot more of it, and he never made it far enough into the playoffs to play against Ovechkin, so he wouldn't know that side of it.
That's true. Playoff Ovechkin he didn't get that. But especially being in that same division, he has faced off against both of them for his entire career, essentially. So
yeah,
I get that, but I just thought it was a funny little way for him to handle that, and I really appreciated what he gave us this week. So thank you, Brandon.
Where do you stand on the Crosby versus Ovi debate? Is it a debate? I don't think it's a debate.
Which one's better?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's not a debate.
Yeah, I mean, they're both great. I think that Crosby is better than Ovi. I think just well-rounded game especially for the longevity of his career. I think I would put Crosby above Ovi. Even still, just Crosby is, Ovechkin's going to score a ton of goals, but man, it is impressive watching Crosby play.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's impressive that, I guess people are struggling for content because there's a lot of projections out there for the Canadian Olympic team right now. And Crosby is one of the few players who's played in previous Olympics for Team Canada who's still on everyone's list.
Yeah. And he should be. He's still
Absolutely.
One of the best players in the game.
Yep.
Well, there we go. Thank you, Brandon Dubinsky, for reminding us about that little debate. But hey, we're going to take a break here. We're back on the side with the Elimination Station. We'll look at the Winnipeg Jets, and Nick will pick his Lidstrom.
Elimination Station.
3, 2, 1.
Man, I gotta start figuring out some way for us to get back into the show after the break, because now I have to do it as part of our coming out of break, and we have to figure out some sort of little segment to do before the Elimination Station.
What do you want?
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I don't know.
I mean,
we'll figure it out.
We've only got a few weeks of the Elimination Station left, so we can come up with whatever we want once playoff time comes.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. This is the segment that I dread the most every week, especially right now. Not normally, but the last few weeks I sweat when I think about this segment.
It's tough.
It's getting real hard.
Look, the Flames 2 weeks ago, especially with what we've seen since then, was easy choice. right? We can safely say that the Flames are out. Last week, the Rangers, they kind of showed us this week they're probably still not in it, right? Especially with, Boston's got that last spot, but they got games in hand.
Yeah, there's an outside chance for the Rangers, but not likely.
Look, the Rangers, and good on them for doing it. The Sabres won this week. They actually won twice since we were last year.
Against the Flyers, who are doing like the opposite.
So they beat the Flyers, and that's a bridge we'll have to cross another week since we put them as a playoff lock. But when you lose to the Rangers, I think, or to the Sabres, I think that cements you as not a playoff team. But let's look at, I was thinking, do you want to go back to the Central Division this week?
Yes.
Because we delayed a decision last week because we have eliminated the Nashville Predators from the playoffs. And as of last week, they were in a playoff spot. They are still in a playoff spot. And I think we need to decide what we're doing there.
They are looking pretty good right now. Chicago's kind of fallen back to earth, which is kind of and still better than where I think everyone expected them to be.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
But in a position where I'm not sure they're going to outplay Nashville for the rest of the season. Now, Dallas is the one that's really surprised me.
Yes. And you alluded at the start of the show that some of Dallas's issues could be, and we don't know, but could very likely be lingering COVID impact.
Yep. They had more issues this week too.
Right. Their coach, who has 2 doses of his vaccine, but was a close contact and was somehow pulled in the middle of the game, like they didn't know that was a thing earlier.
Yeah, I have an idea. Let's just not let teams play until they get test results back.
That seems like a good scenario, but then the NHL would have to plan ahead.
How have they not figured this out yet? How are you pulling people in the middle of the game?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
For what I was likely, they assumed would be a false positive test result.
They think it's a false positive because he's been vaccinated.
Yeah.
Their goalie, Hudobin, was also a false positive. So he's traveling with the team again. And apparently, actually, most of their team has been vaccinated.
Yeah. Which I guess when you have it, most of them would have some sort of antibodies from having it, being in protocol at the start of the year. But that was an interesting thing. But so right now, Chicago and Dallas they are averaging 1 point per game this season. So they are on pace to finish tied for 5th and 6th in that division. Nashville has 41 points in 39 games. So definitely doing a little bit better. But this week, they did lose Philip Forsberg for some time.
Is he back?
He is still day-to-day with an upper body injury. And as of last, they're calling it week to week. So not super great. They're also without Victor Arvidsson. He's not played. He left Saturday's game. They did get back Roman Josi. Ryan Ellis is out right now. And the trade deadline is nearing, and we're about to find out if they think that they're a contender or not.
I think that they think that they are. Forsberg would be a big loss for this team. That would hurt a lot. So I think that's going to weigh heavily into what they do. But what they've shown lately is that they should probably be making moves as if they're going to have a go at the playoffs.
Certainly, I don't think that they should make moves that are going to have them contending for the playoffs though, because like this is a team that's just barely going to sneak into the playoffs likely if they make it.
But like you just play it out. Maybe you just stand pat. You don't sell. You don't buy. You see what this group can give you. Because the bottom line is, if you're going to sneak into the playoffs in fourth place, you're gonna end up likely with Tampa Bay in that first round.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. You don't want to go bring in a bunch of rental players or Taylor Hall types just to lose out to Tampa. No. Which, I mean, currently Florida has surpassed them, which is, I mean, that. We talked last week about that. So what do you think for this week then? Here's what I'm suggesting. I think we delay this decision yet again and ask the question. Out of these three teams, who do you think is least likely to make the playoffs? Chicago. I also think it's Chicago. But hold on, there's a fourth team in the mix here. That's sitting 7th place in the division right now. The Columbus Bluejackets. I thought we'd already eliminated them. We have not. That's true. And their points per game, they're tied with Dallas in points, but have 4 extra games played. Yeah. And they look like they're flailing a little bit right now. Yeah, it's not looking good for Columbus. I mean, I thought we'd already eliminated them. That's how bad things are going for Columbus. So we could slide all of these hard decisions down one more week. Yeah, and I like this. Talk about Columbus this week. Because, I mean, next week is the trade deadline. Next week's episode is going to be all trade deadline all the time. We'll talk about both trades that happened. And for the rest of the show, we will debate the Central Division. Does that sound like a good plan to you? That sounds exactly like what's going to happen next Monday. Yeah. All right. So welcome to the Elimination Station, Columbus. That is right. All right, Columbus. Welcome. It's too bad. Is it? Yeah, I like Columbus. Do you like Columbus or do you like Nick Foligno? Carl, is one truly the other? Can one exist without the other? Look, I'm flustered. You have me flustered now. Called you out. I mean, I like Zdeno Chara, but when he was the captain of the Bruins, I did not like the Bruins. I won't paint the entire brush with a Zdeno Chara sized brush. I could paint the entire team with the Zdeno Chara sized brush. That's a big brush. It's a huge brush. I think I might stop liking the Columbus Blue Jackets pretty soon based on what they do with Nick Foligno. Because that's something that we should talk about this week as part of this segment. The Patrik Laine, Jack Roslovic trade is something we should talk about during this segment. Their goaltending is probably something we should talk about. Okay. Well, and their head coach is probably the last thing we should talk about. All right. Let's start. Number 1, Nick the Stick. What are we doing with Nick Foligno? I think they're probably going to try to move him at the trade deadline. He has trade protection, so he'd have kind of control over where he goes. I can't see it being something that he wouldn't accept. You know, why not be moved to a team that is going to have a shot at winning the Stanley Cup this year? Whether he comes back to Columbus in the offseason or not, I don't know. Obviously, there's a lot of things outside of hockey that affect that decision too, when it comes to family and kids and home, and he's been there for a long time. He's been part of this organization. He's led it for a long time. So there's a chance he could come back, but I think let him go for the rest of the year. Yeah, I would not be surprised to see him be moved. I mean, as we talk about that, I think there's a number of pieces on this team, but he is a free agent after the season, as you mentioned. Yeah. I could see him be on the move. And
possibly not come back to this team. Likely not come back to this team.
I mean, what do you get for 33-year-old Nick Foligno, though?
I think you would be looking for a third, maybe a second.
I think a second is a little high. I was kind of thinking like a third.
Yeah.
It feels about right, but I think as every day passes, who knows what the market's going to do.
That's true. We have no idea what people are willing
Such
to
a
pay.
weird year.
Yeah. And like a pretty high cap hit for him, so it will be harder for teams to fit him in. Columbus, as every situation dictates, can hold back some salary so that they don't have to pay him as much. But that also brings up the asking price.
Yeah.
So, and they need to get him to a team that he wants to go to. So that makes it like all those things make it a little bit harder for them to move him. So Nick Foligno, number one. Then we've got the Patrik Laine trade, where if you were to look at this and say, who has more points this year, Patrik Laine or Nick Foligno, you would probably be wrong because it is Nick Foligno.
Yeah, Laine's struggling in Columbus. Laine's struggling. And you know what? Like, this is we could probably merge this topic with the head coaching topic, because both pieces that came to Columbus in this deal have now been healthy scratched by John Tortorella, Patrik Laine and Jack Roslovic.
And been benched. Benched in games. Like, what? It feels like there is a large disconnect between what the front office's vision for this team is and what John Tortorella and the coaching staff are doing with this team.
Yeah, it's very strange. And you know what? Credit to Torts for the last few years and getting what he did out of a, average team on paper or a mediocre team on paper. They were playing better than that, and they went deeper in the playoffs than they should have. But this year, the wheels are falling off.
Yeah.
It's not looking good.
No. And his contract, from what I understand, his contract is up after this year with the team as well. And it does seem like it's time for something different in Columbus.
Yes. I think at this point, Tortorella is probably part of the problem.
You are
like
flustered.
You said, it's time for something new. I know, right? All this talk of Nick Foligno. Whew. Swarming here.
Yeah, I think that's the case, because you can't just keep replacing talent. You can't build. It seems like you need to build the team that is the players that play exactly the way he wants them to play, and with 100% of the effort that he demands of them. And yes, that'd be great if you could get that, but it's been shown that he doesn't really have much interest in working with those players that don't have that same desires. And
yeah, and when your players aren't getting along with your coach like that, for a team like Columbus, it's especially bad because they have a hard time convincing players to stay in Columbus for a long time. Like, you look at the talent that's requested out of there and that's just left in free agency. There's something about it that there's not a huge appeal for players to stay in Columbus and play there.
I mean, like, I cannot think. Well, the longest tenured one was Rick Nash, who also eventually ended up requesting to leave. But the rest of them, the best players on their team, have all left when able.
Yeah. And it hasn't been mean-spirited or like there hasn't been explosions in the media. They're just kind of like, I just want to see what's out there in free agency. Like, there's just no desire to stay.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a factor of, it's like Columbus versus New York or LA. Like, there might be the bright lights, big city factor there for, these young single guys who have a ton of money and want to go to a big market and be superstars, where they're not going to be in Columbus. But all that to say, like, if you have superstars there on your team playing for you, you have to find ways to keep them there without being able to offer them the bright lights, big city. And I think John Tortorella doesn't help with that.
Not in the slightest. I mean, Pierre Luc Dubois has gone to Winnipeg and played incredibly well, something we'll talk about in our next segment. But Like, he's been a great addition there. He's been what they'd hoped for.
Yeah.
Not what he was giving in Columbus.
No.
So
absolutely not.
Have they found something magical in Winnipeg, or was he beaten down? So I'm with you. I think that definitely could be a change. Do you think then, with Laine having one more year, what do you think he can produce in Columbus in a non-Torts system next year?
Well, he can definitely do better than his 14 points in 30 games, I think. He just doesn't seem to be someone who responds well to a ton of pressure. So if you can take some of that pressure off of him, free him up, he'll feel a little looser and play more freely. I don't know. I would expect him to return to his goal scoring ways.
I mean, his last goal was scored on March 11th.
Oof. That's got to be the longest drought of his career so far.
It's pretty long. That's as long as the last time the Avalanche lost, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So just wanted to mention that.
Cool.
Anyways.
Thanks. There's your Avalanche trivia for the week.
There it is. All right. The last thing you mentioned, goaltenders. What are you thinking there?
I heard that their goaltending was kind of being floated out there as being on the market for the trade deadline. I thought I saw a rumor surrounding Merzlikins. I mean, neither of these guys are superstar goalies.
No.
Right? Neither of them are Sergei Bobrovsky when Sergei Bobrovsky played for Columbus.
Right. Both of them are kind of Sergei Bobrovsky now.
Right. Exactly. And I think you need better than that.
Definitely. Both of them have one more year on their deal, unrestricted free agents after that.
I think they are both good goalies, though, that you could get a decent return on.
Absolutely. I mean, Merzlikins has been the better goalie this last bit. He's also the more expensive goalie. If you combine last year and this year, definitely Merzlikins has been better. So he'd be the one that I think you'd be, if you were kind of calling the rebuild on this roster, which it seems like they're at a time where they need to, it seems like trade those pieces, see what you can get for one of them, and then ride the other one pretty hard next year.
Yeah, and I think that makes perfect sense. Now, like, I don't necessarily agree that they have to go hard rebuild right now. They've got some pieces in place. They're going to pick higher this year. I don't think they're in too bad of a position. I think they need to get more out of their really good players and see if they can't attract some higher level talent, either through trade or free agency.
But I think that this situation is worse than you do then, because I look at this team up front, and yes, they have Patrik Laine, but like offensively, is there anyone else on this team that's not like at their peak already of like the top guys?
Of the top guys, no. I think most of them are either at their peak or on the other side of it. And sure, a lot of these guys at their peak aren't the kind of elite level talent that you need to go forth and win championships with the exception of some of their defensemen.
Right. And that's why, I mean, like, Zach Werenski could definitely still get better. Seth Jones is one of the best defenders in the league. I don't really think you need to be expecting more out of him.
Yeah.
Oliver Bjorkstrand having a good season. They've got him locked up long term. He's a core piece. But like outside of those three, that's really like, there's not, everyone else is either on the downside or not a piece that you're going to really be that concerned with keeping moving forward.
But they also don't have to keep them. Like, they have a ton of flexibility. It's not like they're locked into a ton of crummy deals that take them into, the late 2020s. They're in a pretty good cap situation. They're very flexible. They can go out and get other guys.
So you're wanting them to fill through free agency?
Either that or trades. Yeah. again, they're going to pick pretty high this year.
Which they need to, because if you recall, what was it, 2 years ago? They went, before they lost Bobrovsky and Panarin, they went all in and traded picks and brought pieces in so that they could make this.
Man, that was fun.
But the cupboards are a little bare now in Columbus.
Yeah, from a prospects perspective, I agree.
Like, they've got, I mean, the only prospect that stands out to me on this list is Trey Fix-Wilinski. And that's could be just because I have that WHL bias from him being playing out here.
They also have Cliff Poo.
Can never forget that. But I don't know. I just think I'm not too excited about this Jackets team. I think that they're in a bigger trouble situation than they may be.
It's definitely a fork in the road. I think it can be remedied it can be remedied a lot easier than some of these other teams in the league. But you're right. You can't just stand pat and do nothing. They're on the downward trend if they just do nothing. And
depending on what the NHL does for scheduling next year, if they go back to the old divisions, and who knows what they're going to do for how you make it into the playoffs. But that old division they played in was harder than the one they're in now.
Yeah. Hopefully we're back to normal next year.
One would hope. All right. Winnipeg Jets then. Let's go to the other side of the Laine Pierre Luc Dubois trade. They played, I believe it was only 2 games this week. They played 2 games against the Maple Leafs, losing both of them. Anything, I mean, outside of the losses, anything stand out to you in those games?
I mean, the second loss was a shootout. I see SO. I always want to say shutout first. I don't know. The Leafs stood out. They were just a better team, especially that Wednesday game. The Jets just didn't look like they showed up.
No, very much not. And I mean, the Leafs, like you said, the Leafs looked better. They've also somehow managed to like reignite Jack Campbell into the first round draft pick
so
that
weird,
he was supposed to be. And like we talked last week, we said we were not expecting this, right? We were expecting high scoring games where Connor Hellebuck would keep the Jets in these games, and he did.
Yeah.
So from that side, this is what the Jets are.
Yeah, they're Connor Hellebuck.
But like,
is he the best player on their team?
Oh, I don't think it's close.
Right?
Like, don't get me wrong. I love me some Mark Scheifele. Kyle Connor's also a good player, but Connor Hellebuck is for sure the best player.
Yeah, and he's keeping them in it. We were going to talk about Dubois.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So let's talk about Dubois. 23 games with Winnipeg so far this year.
Points.
14 points.
Yep.
That's the same amount as Laine has in 30 games with Columbus.
Yep. He's fitting a little bit better in there. And I mean, I've been impressed with what he's been able to produce. And I think in the same way that we say Laine needs to like not have that pressure, I think they've put him in there in some situations where he can succeed, and he has.
But Dubois always had that in him. He did it in Columbus too, in the playoffs the last 2 years. They leaned heavily on him. They put a lot of pressure on him, and he performed very well.
Yes.
He's always had that as part of his game.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that stands out to me as the big difference is because we look at what they've done. You said Laine 14 points versus Dubois, also 14 points. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep. But Laine's played in 7 more games.
Laine's played in 7 more games. And as well, I mean, most of a substantial chunk of Laine's production has come on the power play. He's got 5 power play goals as well as an assist, whereas Dubois getting most of his production at even strength, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that shows to me just that better level. Laine's always going to do well on the power play. He's done that his entire career.
Yeah.
And sticks with that. But Dubois doing well in Winnipeg. And I mean, I think he's going to be a great piece moving forward.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I still think Winnipeg, they're going to have to do something about their defense at some point here. I think they're an interesting case to talk about in the context of the trade deadline, because they are at the top of that North Division with the Leafs and the Oilers. So what are they going to do to stay competitive throughout the rest of the season and the playoffs? Because they have a shot. They're like right there.
I mean, they're pretty much almost locked in to playing the Oilers in that first round.
Yeah.
That's what they need to be preparing for at this point, right? Like,
defending McDavid and Draisaitl.
And we saw this week what they do against some teams with speed like the Leafs have.
Yeah.
And it didn't go as well as they'd wanted. So be interesting. Let's take a listen to the conversation I had earlier today with Aimee from the store next door, hearing about the amazing, great things that they do and why we're so excited to be partnering with them.
Yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Very excited. This is something that we've been working on for quite some time, and we are very excited to have Aimee Acker from the store next door with us today. Welcome to the show, Aimee.
Thanks for having me.
And we are excited because you are the people that are going to be providing the prizes that we're using for our high-low sticking contests. Why should people, and why are we so excited? What is it that the store next door does?
So the store next door is a social enterprise, and what we do is find employment for people with disabilities. So we all know that people with disabilities struggle to find employment. So the whole part of our mission is to come up with sustainable products that people can make. And also a big part of our mission is to reuse and recycle. So it's kind of a twofold mission, employable options for people with disabilities and also a sustainable product.
Which, like, from that side is spectacular, right? Being able to provide jobs for people that, like you said, can be difficult sometimes, and taking care of our environment are two very important things. And what I love is that in reusing products, there are so many hockey sticks that we break and are not usable on the ice anymore, but you have found a great way to use those.
Yeah. And we can use almost any size of the stick. So sometimes we get half broken or in 3 pieces, and we're able to use almost every little piece to make big and small products. So fortunately, we've partnered with Canadian Tire, and they give us all their warranty returns throughout the country. So with that, we've been able to keep over 10,000 sticks out of the landfill in the last few years. So
which is that's so great to be able to do that. And so what kind of things are you making with those then?
So with the hockey sticks, we're able to make, you can find most of our products at the storenextdoor.ca. However, we make anything from benches to headboards, coffee tables, end tables, small things for your shelf, such as bookends, pen holders. The possibilities are really endless, and we encourage our customers and our fan base to kind of reach out to us if they have an idea in mind, and we'd be interested in trying to make that for them. So we're very creative, and we're we wouldn't stop at trying something.
Yeah. And that's what I love. And so we are going to be, whenever we hand out a prize to our winner, we're actually going to be sending out to our listeners and players of our contest, an item from your store. And like you said, so many great things. Alex Watson, winner of our first one, I already reached out to him, and he's picked the bookend. So we're going to be getting that sent out to him very shortly. So congratulations, Alex, and excited to get that to you. But so many great things. And so as we go through, when you get, because I mean, from even just in a short period of time, you've added many new items to your store, and there's always new things. Yeah.
We started with 1 or 2 items. Our first item was an end table and a hockey stick headboard, and we have over 45 products now. So the possibilities are really endless with what you can do.
Which is great. And I like it as well because it's a Canadian company. You're out of Nova Scotia, correct?
Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, yes.
Which is fantastic. I mean, I used to live out in Nova Scotia, so definitely got a special place in my heart there. So you said thestorenextdoor.ca is the place that they can go if you want to find more or get some of these items yourself?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. So head on over there.
You can find us on Facebook as well.
Facebook and Facebook and Twitter. Do you have happen to have the handles for those?
The Facebook is the store next door, and Twitter is TSNDNS or at TSNDNS.
Fantastic. So we'll be making sure to tag you when we play our game on Twitter so that people know, one, what they can win, but two, just if they want to go get one of their own. If they are not as successful as they want to be at winning, they can head on over there and get some of the fantastic items that you have. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for being a part of the great work happening at the store next door.
Thanks for the opportunity. We're excited about it.
Awesome. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, there it is. Very excited to be having them providing us our prizes for the high-low sticking and our games with Nick Lidstrom. It's going to be great. So when you win, like Alex did, I just sent him a message and said, hey, like, which of these kinds of products are you looking for? Is there something? And like she said, if there's something that you think, like, I'd really like this kind of a thing made out of sticks, let us know, let them know. We can pass it along because they do amazing work and a great part of the community there over in Nova Scotia. So thanks to them, and very excited to be working with them the rest of this season through the playoffs. So, which brings us to Nick Lidstrom for this week. A team that you feel is a lock for the playoffs. Who do you think?
I think we got to stick in the North. We were just talking about this team and the possible playoff series. Edmonton is going to make the playoffs. They're going to finish top 3 in the North Division. They have 1-2 games against the Senators this week, so that'll be fun to watch all the scoring. And then they play the Flames on Saturday.
Be a good battle over. Did you see the stat this week that the Senators have not been shut out once this season?
Yeah, right. I did not see that. I don't believe that.
I saw it. No one refuted it, and so I'm taking it as truth.
This team is so weird. The Senators.
Wow.
Where did they come from? Anyways, Oilers.
There you go. So for the games with the Oilers this week, we'll be playing high-low sticking. Head to our Twitter, which is at Fourth Line Podcast, where you can tell us if you're going to pick the over or under for those games. We reset the scoreboard last week and gave the prize to Mr. Alex Watson. So congrats, Alex. You can be the next person to win a prize from the store next door. And we'll be playing this game every day this week. You can find more about the show at thefourthlinepodcast.com, where you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to, give us a review. Let everyone know how much you love the show. We really appreciate that. Helps us out. And until next week,
it's time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. Don't whine about throwing your helmet at a player. If you do, you'll have Brendan Dubinsky as a hater.